Hi, I'm Max Tar, also known as Instructor Max, and today we're going to talk about possibly the most controversial method of all time, maintain lead. Obviously, some people love it, others can't do it, some people hate it. Personally, I go through fits and phases of loving it myself. Sometimes it works beautifully, everything just flows, your hand-eye's working perfectly. Sometimes you just use it and you have no idea where you missed. And that's part of the problem. I find that if I'm a little bit tired, dehydrated, my eyes aren't working quite so well, when I set up for maintained, things just aren't clicking. So then I have to go back to sort of traditional methods, swing through, pull away. I find when I'm on form, healthy, feeling good, that maintained will just work really, really well. But at the end of the day, it does come back down to decision-making skills. How I choose my maintained hold points is different. I go through a different process of how I look at the bird or where my gun hold is relevant to where I see it, because I want everything to be seamless. And that's how I think maintained should be. You do see a lot of lazy maintained where the clay will come up to you and you start crabbing and trying to get away from it, and then it turns into almost half a pull away, as well as I class that as a bad move, hard to repeat, and just obviously not very clean overall. When I'm looking at my hold points, for one, let's just say the clay needs 3 foot lead, or whatever you perceive to be 3 foot. I will make sure that I am 3 foot away from where I can really, really see that clay, so I can just move away at that 3 foot. And the clay never gets to me. I'm moving away smoothly and it works perfectly. So when we're talking about maintained, what I mean is that that clay never beats my barrel like it does in either swing through, where the clay beats us and then we follow it through from behind, or pull away when the clay hits our gun visually and then we pull away from it. So in theory, our gun is always maintaining a gap ahead of that clay. I've shot a lot of different clays maintained over the years, some with a bit of luck, some with a bit of precision that I knew it was going to work. And that's the problem with maintained. I have to know the gap down to the millimeter. That's got to be perfect, because there's a bit of guesswork involved, because obviously the gun's going and I'm just staring at the clay, getting that connection right visually with my eyes. I find that a lot of people complain that you get lost on the line with maintained, go offline very easily. Well, in all fairness, I get my hold points very precise. I try and be online as possible, and I try and kill the clay as early as possible whilst I'm on that correct line. I try and avoid hanging on to stuff, letting the clay die unless I really have to try and make sure of it. Obviously, it's a bit of trial and error in terms of finding out what you can and can't kill maintained. But what I find is that, or the clay's presentation before me has to be really obvious. The speed of the clay for one. If I can't get the speed of that clay right, that clay is going to come straight up to me without even a moment's notice. So that's going to catch me off guard. So everything that I'm dealing with visually has to be very obvious. The line's relatively flat, the gap's relatively easy to perceive. I know exactly what it is. It's getting very difficult these days to try and get it perfect. Certain backgrounds, certain speeds, certain clays, it is very deceiving. If I think a clay needs no lead, I'm always going to swing through it. Unless it's a case of it's a simo pair or simultaneous pair where, I got to break one early, then that gives me time for the second clay, so I can maintain the first one and then I can possibly swing through the second one. A few decisions to be made here to get it perfectly right, but it comes down to I've got to get the hold point right, I have to know the lead, and I got to be just looking back, looking perfectly and moving in sync all the time to make it really seamless. So at the end of the day, one of the biggest questions is, why would we shoot maintained? For me, it comes down to confidence sometimes. When if I'm shooting really, really well, my hands and eyes are working perfectly, I'm making good decisions, then maintained is always going to be my best friend 99% of the time. Because I'm working it out beautifully, confidence is high, I'm moving the gun well, and you know what? When it works really, really well. If I'm having a day where I'm unsure, I have to learn and go, okay, back off here, this isn't working. But sometimes actually when it really is good, because obviously I'm really good at perceiving gaps. So if I know it needs 6 foot, for instance, sometimes if I go shoot, pull away or swing through, I can't quite get the right hand speed to try and get to that gap. So then I can actually maintain that gap really easy instead of trying to pull away to it. So that's why I find it easier sometimes to go, okay, I know what the gap is, but I'm struggling to get there. Let's maintain it. Oh, it broke. That works. Let's just do that again. So obviously I'm not perfect. My pull away and my swing through aren't perfect, but generally I know what the gap is. So then I have to make the best decision of how to get there. So why we shoot maintain on certain targets is when I've got, generally it's a smaller window, bigger gap, that I just want to get broke and kill it nice and early with nice and confidence. Obviously there's a right to left target here, orange. It needs a gap. I know I can move the gun well, nice and smoothly, and I'm going to break it nice and early. Obviously the longer I leave it, there's more chances of me coming through, swinging too fast and making a wrong choice. So providing that I got my hold point and the gap, all I got to do is start moving gently into the gap and pull the trigger. So let's shoot the clay now. So I've got my hold point, and then I go pull, pull, obviously hold point is key. You can see that clay got up to within best part of 1.5 to 2 foot. I started moving nice and early, killed it nice and early, and we had big balls of soot. It just works well, especially if confidence is high, especially if you can guarantee you're moving the gun well. Maintain is always going to work well. So obviously certain targets like that, I can always guarantee that I'm going to shoot maintain really well on those style of clays. If it needed a little bit less lead or is a little bit slower, then I can fall back on to swing through. But because of the speed and obviously the lead involved, I can slow everything down and just stay up the front, hold the gap, pull the trigger, move the gun nice and well. And obviously, as you can see, I had 2 brilliant kills out of it. So now we're going to go on to a different target and discuss it, obviously why, obviously the pros and the cons, and how we're going to shoot it. So now we're just going to look at a standard right to left crosser. The interesting thing about this pit is that we've got this little bank here, and you can't see the trap either. So actually, when they throw targets in here, it's hard to interpret the speed, because all of a sudden this clay just appears and you go, oh, there he is. So actually it's interesting when you're going through the decision making skills of what method should I use to go, oh, it looks like it should be maintained, or it could be maintained, but I'm just going to hang back and find out what the speeds are because of the way the clay just appears. So it's easier to rely on swing through and pull away to try and obviously get the speed right. So, but we are going to shoot it maintained, and then we're going to see how we get on. So pull, pull, the speed of the clay is disconcerting, and the way it appears, it's really, really difficult to obviously see it well and then start moving the gun. It's obviously I did adjust my hold point a few times just to try and get the right visual picture and start moving the gun. But it's one of these things, there's no necessarily rules about what we can shoot, but certain clays like that would probably favour a nice little swing through, just because it's hard to try and maintain that right gap without obviously that clay squeezing you and obviously encroaching on you. Because obviously as soon as that clay gets close to you, you're going to want to go, oh, push, and then obviously you start missing in front. So obviously it does come down to that quality of that hold point as well, but also making sure we're choosing the right clays to use maintain on. So our third target we're going to shoot is a standard left to right crosser, a little bit further out there, a little bit more lead. So obviously when we're choosing our hold point, that has to be relevant. I'm seeing quite a big gap, what to me looks like 6 foot. So when that clay comes out and I see it really, really well, I've already got that 6 foot built into my gap and into my lead. So it's a case of when I'm moving, I'm seeing the gap, holding on to it, and when I know I've got it perfectly, I'll pull the trigger. obviously maintained is key here, where obviously the longer I hold on to that gap, the worse my hands are going to get, the slow hand speed and everything else. So generally what happens is that people will slow down, and then the gap decreases, and then the clay catches up to you, then you'll be missing behind. So let's shoot a couple now and see how it looks. So I've got my hole point above the A. So pull, pull. It's not the clay, and see, to be fair, Maintained does prefer a faster clay. Obviously, obviously different speed to the last clay we shot, because we can see this clay for quite a long time, but it is a little bit slower, and so you're working harder to match that speed of that clay, because it is a little bit slower. Faster clay with a more obvious speed will work nicer, because you can see the clay, you know it's moving quick, and so you can pull the trigger nice and early. Not obviously a perfect clay to shoot Maintained on, but obviously we can shoot it well. I can shoot this clay well with whatever method I want. But if you ask me, would you shoot this Maintained? I go, only if I had to. I think a nice steady pull away or swing through would be perfect. That goes for every clay we're talking about at the moment. I've only come across a few clays this year where I thought, oh, I got to maintain this because I'm going to struggle to put a sensible pull away or swing through onto it. So we've shot 3 different style of targets, obviously all with 3 different speeds. Good success on these targets, but wouldn't necessarily mean that I would always shoot it that way all the time. So we've already done swing through, we've already done pull away. It's a very brief, obviously a brief introduction to Maintained, but it all boils around the same quality of the hole points, methods and everything that we obviously instill out on here. So if you want to watch those videos, I'll link them in the description beneath. Huge thank you to Vibrary Shooting School as always for letting me film on the shooting ground. Obviously it's one of the best grounds in the country to come and play, teach and everything else. I've been Instructor Max, and please like and subscribe.